This is part 4. Make sure you have your guide notes for part 4 in front of you before you continue with this video. So now that we've worked on making visual representations, we're going to work on creating story problems. And story problems are another way to model an arithmetic problem. Story problems present problems in context, help students make real-world connections to understand the procedural math they're doing, and also help build conceptual understanding of arithmetic operations. So with fraction multiplication, stories present a context in which you redefine the unit. And we're also, with fraction multiplication, looking at stories that ask us to find a fraction of a fraction. So as an example, Malik created a bouquet with 1/6 yellow flowers. If 2/3 of the yellow flowers were roses, what fraction of the bouquet were yellow roses? In this case, we're talking about a fraction of the bouquet. So we've redefined the unit. We're not talking about the whole bouquet. We're talking about the 1/6 of the bouquet made up of yellow flowers. And of those yellow flowers, 2/3 are yellow roses. So a fraction of a fraction is what we're looking for to find our answer here, our product, the fraction of the bouquet that are yellow roses. So we can solve this by multiplying. 1/6 times 2/3 equals 2/18, which simplifies to 1/9. And as we've seen with our visual representations, we can start out by finding 2/3. So we're looking for 1/6 of 2/3. We start with 2/3, and then we divide that length, 2/3, into 6, and we're looking for 1/6 of 2/3, which, as we can see on our number line, is at the point 1/9. Okay, so here's another example. Of the students in our class, 3/5 have a pet dog. Of the students who have a dog, 4/5 also have a fish. What fraction of the students in our class have both a dog and a fish? So again, we've started out by redefining the unit. We're not talking about our whole class. We're just talking about the 3/5 of the class that have a pet dog. And we're going to find a fraction of a fraction. Of those 3/5, 4/5 of them also have a fish. So we need to find 3/5 of 4/5 to get our product 12/25. And we can also see the product here in this visual representation. If we overlay 4/5 and 3/5, the overlapping area represents our product 12/25. Here's another example. On Monday, Chris practiced guitar for 3/4 of an hour. On Tuesday, he practiced for half the amount of time he practiced on Monday. What fraction of an hour did Chris practice for on Tuesday? So again, we're redefining the unit. On Monday, he practiced for 3/4 of an hour, and we want to find a fraction of that fraction. What is 1/2 of 3/4? So 1/2 of 3/4 is 3/8. Here's another example. The whales at the aquarium are fed 3/4 of a ton of fish every day. The seals are fed 5/6 of the amount of fish the whales are fed. How much fish are the seals fed each day? We redefine the unit. The whales are fed 3/4 of a ton of fish. We want to find a fraction of that fraction. The seals are fed 5/6 the amount that the fish are, the amount of fish the whales are fed. How much are the seals fed each day? So the seals are fed 3/4 times 5/6, or 15/24, which simplifies to 5/8 of a ton of fish. Okay, now it's your turn to try it on your own. You're going to write fraction multiplication story problem to model the problem 5/6 times 2/3. So remember, fraction multiplication stories present a context in which you redefine the unit and then find a fraction of a fraction. Think about the examples we went over, and then on your guided notes form for number 1, you're going to try writing your own story problem to model this problem. After you write a story problem, come back and check your answer. Pause here to go write your problem and come back to check. Okay, we're going to look at a few possible stories. So your story may be totally different, but the format of these stories are going to show you the correct format for a problem that's setting up a fraction multiplication scenario, a proper fraction multiplication scenario. So the problem was 5/6 times 2/3 for a product of 10/18, which simplifies to 5/9. So one example, 2/3 of the parking spaces at the mall were full. 5/6 of the full spots were occupied by red cars. What fraction of the spots in the lot were filled with red cars? 5/9 of the spots in the lot were filled with red cars. Here's another possibility. I spent 2/3 of the money in my wallet on dinner. 5/6 of my dinner bill was for an appetizer. What fraction of the money in my wallet did I spend on my appetizer? And a third possibility, 2/3 of the princes at the ball were single. Of the single princes, 5/6 were attractive. What fraction of the princes at the ball were single and attractive? So if your story uses a similar format where you redefine the unit and then set up a situation where you're finding a fraction of a fraction, you've got a good proper fraction multiplication story. We're going to give it another try. So for number 2 on your guided notes form, you're going to write another fraction multiplication story problem, this time to model the problem 3/8 times 2/4, which gives you a product of 6/32, which simplifies to 3/16. So remember, you are going to set up a situation in which you redefine the unit and then ask to find a fraction of a fraction. Pause here, draft a story problem, and then come back to see some possible stories. Okay, here's one example. Mickey had 3/8 of her birthday cake left after her party. Gus ate 2/4 of Mickey's leftover cake. How much of the cake did Gus eat? Should be Gus here. Gus ate 3/16 of the cake. Okay, here's another example. Rachel had 3/8 of a gallon of paint left after painting her bathroom. Ross used 2/4 of the remaining paint to paint a chair. How much of a gallon of paint did Ross use on the chair? He used 3/16 of a gallon of paint. And our final example, 3/8 of the class earned an A in math. Of the students who earned an A in math, 2/4 also earned an A in history. What fraction of the class earned A's in both math and history? 3/16 of the class earned A's in both math and history. So again, your story could be set in a very different context than these examples, but the format or the structure of the problem should be similar. You redefine the unit and then ask to find a fraction of a fraction. Okay, to wrap up this session, we've started out focusing on the direction of effects for fraction multiplication, and we learned that the direction of effects depends on whether you are multiplying proper or improper fractions. When you multiply two proper fractions, you get a product less than either factor. When you multiply improper fractions, you get a product greater than either factor. Fraction multiplication involves redefining the unit and finding a fraction of a fraction, and we learned to create visual representations and story problems to model fraction multiplication. As we close up, please go to number 3 on your guided notes page, and you're going to rate how confident you feel in your knowledge about the direction of effects for multiplication of fractions, and how confident you feel creating visual representations and story problems to model fraction multiplication.